Hello, my friend. Today, I invite you to listen and read along. Don't just listen, read every word, repeat them, and feel the story. Step by step, you will learn English through this journey. Let the story guide you, sentence by sentence. Are you ready? Let's begin. Amelia Krüger was only 11 years old. A small girl with smooth brown hair, hastily tied at the back of her neck, and clear blue eyes that always carried a shadow of sadness. From early morning until late at night, Amelia worked in a noisy, dusty hotel called the Quarryman's Inn. It was the shelter of stonecutters, rough men, loud, often drunk, and roaring with laughter. The air reeked of cigarette smoke and cheap beer, the noise like hammers striking rock, never ceasing. The work was far too heavy for a child. Amelia had to scrub floors, scour pots, carry trays of food, and haul buckets of water from the well. By evening, her back ached, her hands burned red, and her legs trembled with exhaustion. "I am so tired. I just want to sleep. I wish someone would come and rescue me." Those words often echoed in her young mind. Yet every night, when the work was done, Amelia climbed up to the tiny room under the roof. Inside, there was only a rickety wooden chair, a broken table, and a small candle. She lit the candle, sat down, and opened her most treasured possession, an old book of Grimm's fairy tales. In the flickering light, Amelia lost herself in the pages. There were brave princes, proud princesses, and little girls who were small but courageous. If they can do it, then maybe I can dream too, she whispered to herself. And in her dreams, Amelia believed that one day some prince would come and take her away from this dark hotel. But the hotel manager, Mrs. Martha Doyle, despised books. Whenever she saw Amelia reading, she clenched her teeth and barked, "A servant girl doesn't need to read Go to Sleep so you can work tomorrow one evening, Mrs." Doyle snatched the Grimm book from Amelia's hands and threw it to the ground. "Books only fill your head with foolish dreams. Wake up, child. Here, there is nothing but work and more work." Amelia's heart dropped like a stone. Without the book, she felt she had lost her only friend. Amelia's hometown was Steinberg, a place where many German families lived. Her father, Johann Krüger, was a stern, quiet man who always calculated carefully. Because of poverty, he had sent Amelia more than 30 miles away to work, so she could help earn money. Each week, the hotel paid Amelia $3. That money he kept tightly, hoping one day to buy more land. At night, Amelia's longing for her family twisted inside her. She missed her mother's warm hands, her sister Gretchen's laughter, the mischief of her younger brothers Karl and Lucas, and the babbling of baby Felix, the youngest boy. The longing bound her heart so tightly that her small blue eyes were always blurred with tears. One day, overwhelmed with exhaustion and despair, Amelia whispered to herself, "If I want to survive, I have to speak out." She opened an old wooden box hidden under her bed, pulled out a scrap of paper and a blunt pencil. The pencil tip was worn, so she bit into the wood to make it sharp again. The candle burned weakly. Her hand trembled, but Amelia began to write. "Dearest Mama, I miss you so much. I miss Gretchen, Karl, Lucas, and little Felix. Today, Mrs. Doyle beat me. I had no supper. My hands hurt from carrying wood. I am so tired. I am only a child. If you don't come for me tomorrow, I will go to the river. There is a place where the water is deep. I will go down. I want to be with you again." When she finished, Amelia folded the letter and pressed it to her chest, tears running down her cheeks. Outside the window, the shadow of a young man passed quietly. It was Thomas O'Reilly, 17 years old, who worked at the nearby quarry. Thomas always walked by each evening, sometimes pausing to look at the flicker of Amelia's candle. Amelia opened the window slightly and called softly, "Thomas, will you help me?" Thomas stepped closer, his eyes bright in the darkness. "What is it?" "Amelia." She dropped the letter down, her voice trembling. "Please take this letter to the postman at Boulder's house. I beg you." Thomas nodded firmly, hiding the letter inside his shirt. "I promise. I'll send it." Amelia watched his shadow disappear into the night. Then she blew out the candle and lay down on the thin mattress, still in her clothes. She did not cry anymore. She had no strength left to cry. Far away, in the town of Steinberg, the Krüger family still sat at the long table on the porch, drinking beer and playing cards. Johann lit his pipe while her mother chatted with neighbors. Amelia's wages were locked safely in a wooden box, but no one knew what their little girl was enduring. Thomas O'Reilly clutched the letter in his hand, his heart racing. The road leading up the hill was pitch dark, the wind whistling through the trees. As he ran, one thought kept echoing in his mind. Amelia is so fragile. If this letter doesn't reach its destination, she will lose all hope. At exactly 10:30, Mr. Boulder, the old postman, opened the door. He leaned on his wooden cane, frowning because of the pain in his toe. Seeing Thomas, he asked softly, "Why are you running so breathlessly, young man?" Thomas held out the letter. "Please send this right away. It is from Amelia Krüger. She needs to see her mother." Mr. Boulder nodded, his eyes softening. "All right, I will put it in the mailbag." A moment later, the clattering sound echoed. It was Fritz Keller, the mail coach driver, arriving in his wooden wagon pulled by two black mules. Fritz, cheerful and loud, with his glasses slipping down his nose, received the bag from Boulder. Patting his chest, he said, "Don't worry, the girl's letter will reach Steinberg." Thomas breathed a sigh of relief, but the darkness was ready to set its trap. Halfway through, as the mail coach rattled through the woods, 3 masked men leapt out. Gunshots rang. Fritz startled, and the 2 mules neighed in terror. The leader, Hank Dalton, broad-shouldered with a thunderous voice, shouted, "Get off the coach." Hand over the bag, Fritz tried to stay calm. "There is only mail in here, no gold or silver." The second man, Ralph Miller, yanked hard on the reins, making one of the mules cry out in pain. Fritz snapped angrily, "Don't hurt it immediately." They tied him to a tree and ripped open the bag. Envelopes scattered everywhere. Jed Harper, the youngest, picked up a small letter and handed it to Hank. Hank frowned. "It's written in German." "Who can make sense of this?" Fritz cried out quickly. "Please don't throw it away. It's a little girl's letter. Let me read it." "By the firelight." He slowly translated. His voice broke as he read the words, "If mother does not come for me, I will go to the river." The air went silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. The bandits looked at each other. Jed lowered his head, whispering, "An 11-year-old child." Ralph tapped his finger on the gun, no longer laughing. Hank gripped the letter tightly, then roared, "What kind of parents drive their child to this point?" "No, we cannot ignore this." Hank drew a deep breath, then spoke firmly. "Tonight, we are not just outlaws. Tonight, we are knights." Jed lifted his head, his eyes shining. Ralph shrugged. "Well, let's try then. For a little girl." They made their plan right there by the campfire. For the first time, the usual gunfire and cruel laughter gave way to solemn silence. When the moon hung high, 3 dark figures entered the quarrymen's inn. Inside, the snores of drunken guests echoed. Mrs. Martha Doyle had dozed off in the kitchen, her head resting on the table. They opened the door carefully. Ralph went first. Hank followed, and Jed guarded the rear. The staircase creaked, but the drunkards noticed nothing. In the attic, Amelia lay curled up under a thin blanket. Her face was gaunt, her breathing faint and trembling. Hank stepped forward, bending down. He lifted the girl as if she were a fragile flower. Gently, he wrapped her in a thick blanket they had brought. She remained fast asleep, unaware. "Quickly now," Ralph whispered. The three men silently descended, opened the door, and vanished into the night. Fritz was freed from his ropes. Hank clapped him on the shoulder, chuckling roughly. "You are a knight tonight, too." Remember that Fritz was still dazed, but when he saw Amelia resting quietly in the wagon, his throat tightened. He grasped the reins and whispered, "Lord, please bring this child back to her family." The wheels turned slowly. The night wind was cold, but beneath the heavy blanket, Amelia was warm. In her dream, she saw a prince. He was tall, bearded, but smiling gently. He placed her on a horse and whispered, "Do not be afraid. I will take you home." Amelia smiled in her sleep, unaware that outside, the masked knights had just changed the course of their own lives. Dawn broke over the hills surrounding the town of Steinberg. Gentle golden light spread across the red-tiled roofs, shining on the muddy dirt road that led back into town. On the wooden wagon, Amelia Krüger was still fast asleep. Her breathing was steady, her face softened after months of hardship. The thick blanket wrapped around her thin frame, shielding her from the chilly morning breeze. Up front, Fritz Keller gripped the reins tightly. After a long night facing bandits, he still felt dazed. In his heart, a question kept repeating. How could a child be forced to live through this? Where were her parents? How could they let her suffer so? But when he looked at Amelia lying so quietly, he saw a strange light, a kind of innocence that even brutal thieves could not bring themselves to crush. By 11 o'clock, the wagon rolled through the Krüger family gate. The large wooden house, with a grape arbor covering its porch, carried the warm scent of freshly baked bread. Elise Krüger was hanging laundry, while Johann Krüger sat puffing smoke from his wooden pipe. At the sound of wheels stopping, the whole family came rushing out. "Fritz." "Did you bring the mail?" Elise called out, her face full of expectation. Fritz nodded and held out the crumpled letter. His voice was hoarse. "There's mail, but there's more to it than that." With trembling words, he recounted the ambush in the forest, the savage bandits, and Amelia's tear-stained letter. When he reached the part that read, "If you don't come for me, I'll go to the river," his voice broke. Elise covered her face and sobbed, "Oh Lord, my daughter, how could we have let her fall into such misery?" Johann's face flushed red. He slammed his pipe against the ground in fury. "This is all your fault. You were the one who agreed to let her go work." Their shouting rang sharp in the midday sun. But suddenly, a small voice came from behind the wagon. "Mama!" The yard fell silent. Every eye turned. The blanket shifted, and a small figure stepped down. Her eyes were heavy with sleep, her face pale, but her lips curved into a trembling smile. Amelia Elise screamed, running to wrap her daughter in her arms. Johann stood frozen, his hands shaking. Siblings. Gretchen, Karl, Lucas, and little Felix rushed forward, clutching their sister. Laughter and tears mingled, echoing across the road. Fritz's mouth fell open in disbelief. "Good heavens, I swear, I had no idea she was in the wagon. How could this even be Elise? Tears streaming, whispered through her sobs. You've brought her back to us. You're the savior of our family, still in her mother's embrace. Amelia lifted her face. A radiant smile spread across her lips, her voice soft but echoing deep into everyone's hearts. No, Mama. It was the prince who brought me home. Everyone froze. Johann frowned. What prince? What nonsense is she speaking? Amelia sat down on the steps, her eyes sparkling. She spoke slowly, as if recalling a beautiful dream last night. The prince came with his knights. They smashed the hotel doors, terrifying Mrs. Doyle. They shoved the innkeeper into a barrel of water. Then the prince lifted me up, wrapped me in a blanket, and set me on his horse. I heard him clearly say, "Don't be afraid, I will take you home." The adults exchanged doubtful glances. Carl chuckled. Maybe you were just dreaming. But Amelia shook her head firmly. No, it was real. The prince came. Laughter broke out among the family, but in their hearts, a seed of belief had been planted. Even Fritz, who had seen everything with his own eyes, muttered under his breath. Perhaps. Sometimes fairy tales do come true. That afternoon, all of Steinberg buzzed with talk. Some swore the bandits had suddenly grown a conscience. Others claimed God had sent an angel to help. Children ran through the streets shouting, Amelia was rescued by a prince. But Amelia, when asked, only smiled. The prince came. I don't need to believe otherwise. Her words became a refrain, a reminder that even in a harsh world, kindness still existed. That evening, the Krüger family gathered around the dinner table. For the first time in many months, Amelia sat surrounded by love. Elise placed food onto her daughter's plate, tears streaming down her cheeks. Johann sat in silence, his stern eyes glistening with moisture. Amelia placed her hand on the old Grimm book and whispered, I have learned something. When you dare to speak, when you refuse to hide your pain, someone will hear you. And then, a hand will reach out. Night fell. Amelia sat by the window, the candle flickering. Outside, the wind rustled through the grapevines. She read the Grimm pages again, her voice small but steady. Read, listen, think, speak. Each word echoed in her mind. She smiled. When you long for freedom, dare to speak. When you need hope, believe that someone will come. And when you believe, miracles will happen. The candlelight illuminated her young face, but her eyes already shone bright. Though the road ahead promised hardship, Amelia knew she had discovered her strength faith. From that day on, in Steinberg, no one called her the little hotel maid anymore. They called her by a new name, simple yet beautiful, the prince's girl.